Hello everyone, I'm just going to stop my screen share so that you can see us all. And yes, hello. Hi everyone. So Kat isn't with us. No, she hasn't died. That's a little cat is no longer with us. No, Kat's off having a little bit of an adventure somewhere in the world. So she's having a really fab time. So I wrote to my mate, she lives local like. This is Ismene Cole. Now, Ismene, just say a little bit about your work, really, because you're kind of coachy, counselling, therapy person.
I am. So I'm a coach and a counsellor, and I help people develop the mindset to have a life that they want.
Oh, it was like you practiced that going up in an elevator. Elevator pitch.
That passionate about it.
Yeah. So welcome to Becky's Life Hacks.
Okay, so I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat. We've already seen Astrid. Thank you very much for your question. I'll be having a look at that shortly. Okay, so someone that Lou emailed in, so I'll just read out the question. So Lou said, I am wondering about a potential change in my business. I currently advertise it on strictly clinical lines, so within psychotherapy and hypnotherapy, but I'm considering a change to a more holistic business, which would include more spiritual and healing modalities in the mix. What are your feelings about this, Becky?
Well, obviously, me and Ismene are kind of like into that sort of spiritual healing modality, but you know, and there's ways in which to do it. And like you're saying, when you've already got the sort of psychotherapy bents, I think you've really got to think about who are your ideal clients. Oh God, aren't we bored with hearing about ideal clients? Because actually, to be honest, I don't have ideal clients. I don't really have ideal problems. I don't know about you, but it's kind of like that idea of serving everybody. But when you're thinking about what the kinds of things are that light you up, the things that make you feel alive when you're answering those questions. And by knowing that, you're going to know whether or not that audience is going to be open to holistic stuff. So if you're kind of like thinking, all right, that my ideal client is perhaps somebody who works in accounts for British home stores, other places that sell clothing are available. You know, is that person going to be reading Psychologist magazine? Probably, possibly. Is that person going to be reading Kindred Spirit magazine? Hopefully, I've got an article coming out. But you know, what is it that they're doing? You know, what is it that they're doing? How can you reach them? So if you're looking for people who are already on the spiritual journey and you're thinking, well, I actually want people who've suddenly kind of gone, they've hit that crossroads point where they've gone, there must be more to life than this. Then it might be, okay, well, I want people who are already curious spiritually. So if that's the case, it really doesn't matter if I'm kind of like putting myself down as being a holistic practitioner. So by understanding who your clients are, then you really know whether or not the marketing terminology that you're going to be using coughs up for those people. Because in actual fact, you don't really have to label yourself. It's more about your results. So if you know what it is that you're trying to fix and you know what the results are going to be, I'll be honest with you, I don't think anyone actually cares about the tools. I mean, really, I don't think that they do. Like, you can have as many exam results as you like. I mean, I know people who get addicted to workshopping. You know, they'll get certificates in everything and still feel unprepared.
I'm one of them.
I've been like that too.
Yeah.
Well, I can't stop learning either, but my God, if you could actually, if I put on my website a list of, it looked like a holistic menu, you know, and it would confuse people because they'd be kind of like, well, I just want fixing. I don't know what I want you to do. I just want fixing. So I don't really care how you're doing it. So I think when you become results based, then you start to become really clear on how to put that together as a marketing thing. So you're talking about the results and you're talking about the problem more than you're actually talking about what your skills are. That broadens your horizon to work with multiple clients from different modalities and different mindsets. So, you know, I mean, I've gone over to Pakistan and, you know, I stupidly mentioned reincarnation during Ramadan, which got me actually in the national paper. So I was a bit of an idiot. But it just goes to show, like, no matter what religious background somebody's got, it doesn't matter. You're still providing help and change and healing. So that's the most important thing.
So I think for me, the interesting thing is that I really believe that when we're ready to teach something, the clients come. And I think you've already got a great foundation, but the key is really what lights you up, because I think what you feel enthusiastic about, what you feel passionate about, that's the bit that attracts you. So in terms of my own career, I started out just doing counselling, and over time I found out, oh, I'm a bit passionate about this, and these are the things that I really love, and those types of clients that came.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? It's like, and also I tended to find I got a lot of clients that had gone through things that I'd gone through in the past.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hang on a minute. And you're kind of like holding back from saying, listen, darling, I can tell you your personal experience, because obviously you can't really, but then you find that sometimes your life becomes a really wonderful metaphor, because if you have lived through something, it's like, I mean, I call it a vibrational match. But there can be such a strong match between the people who are attracted to you and your own life experience and your own training. So sometimes you can't help it. Like, you know, you might say, right, I'm clinically trained in this particular thing. And then you only get holistic clients and you're like, how did this happen?
I think, yeah, it's about trusting actually that when you're ready and you put yourself out there authentically, people will self-select. They're really, really clever at being able to think, right, you are the right person, whether they do that consciously or not. They will be attracted to you, and it's just trusting that if you're ready and that's what you feel a call to, just go for it.
Yeah, go for
with
it.
What you're passionate about.
Go with what you know. So yes, it just seems to me like you're expanding what you're already doing. Good. Shall we have a little look, or do we want to get to Astrid's track? Right, up to you. You're running the show. Stop
okay. So yeah, we'll go to Astrid. Okay. So Astrid says, my mother is very negative. She's always a victim of everything and everybody. I used to be like her and listen to her complaints for hours by phone. However, I've changed, and I've seen that it's very difficult for me to listen to her and her negative thoughts. What should I do?
Some people become negative because they believe that they need to worry about something for a specific length of time and with a specific amount of depth in the worrying in order for everything to be okay. Isn't that weird? But it's like that worry. If I moan about it and worry about it and get upset about it, I will have kind of, in a sense, put myself through my own purgatory, and then everything will be okay. It's like figuring out the worst scenario handbook and following through all of the different tracks of things that could go wrong, and looking at them. And it makes us feel like we're more in control. And so sometimes when we moan about things, we're actually creating control, because we're discussing our fears, we are exercising them, we're bringing them out into the thing. And somehow we feel like we're kind of like, you know, staring at the face of the devil saying, I'm not scared of you, or whoever. So I think that sometimes people really feel that they need to be negative in order for everything to go well. And that might seem really strange. And what we know about the law of attraction, we kind of think it's properly counterintuitive. So first of all, I think that the way around this, because I mean, it's your mum, and it's hard to turn around to your mum and say, for God's sake, I really feel drained and exhausted having spoken to you. We can't really do that. But, and to be honest, I've apologised to people on the phone when I've found that I've been a right old nag bag and just gone into a right old whinge fest. I think we all get into whinge fest. I think I've given you a few whinge fests. We get into a whinge fest, but somehow we feel like we're creating coping strategies by talking about things. So is there other ways that you can give her coping strategies? So in other words, when you're listening, what is actually the fear? What's she actually scared of that is behind the moan? So the moan might be, oh, you know, so I'm thinking about my grandmother now, who used to moan about the neighbours or this thing or that thing, or she just, and it would, and you kind of think, well, what is the fear behind all of that? And actually her fear was losing people, was losing the community, was actually not having people that she could connect with. She felt disconnected. So what she was really telling me is, I spend so much time looking out of the window because I'm craving connection. So if I'd have understood that when she was moaning about them, I would have probably spent more time ringing her up or going round to her house or something. And so, I mean, sometimes we can't solve other people's need to control their lives, and there's not really very much we can do about it. But if you understand that there's a fear behind the moaning, and it isn't just a case of being negative whinge bag, that they're actually exercising something that they're really terrified of, sometimes you can answer the fear and stop the moaning. Sometimes you can't. so you know, so I think have like an egg timer or something so that you don't end up on the phone too long. That's a good way of doing it. Or try and like do little calls, little and often, not great big long epic calls that go on forever, little and often. That might be the way to do it. Just understand that it is tattooed to the inside of the womb. You know, you have to just put up with it. It's tattooed on the inside of the womb. You know, kind of, they always say that a daughter is for life and a son is for the wife. So I don't know if that's true or not, but still. But you know, I think that we kind of have all sorts of different connections with our parents, don't we? Anything to add?
I think the key thing when people are in that victim status is that it really for them becomes an identity. So the key here is actually to kind of try and separate yourself from that a little bit. So when people are in a victim, they try and entangle us a little bit with either being a persecutor, so we say, oh, for God's sake, you're driving me mad, and then we'll go in for the attack, or that we tend to rescue them, do them things that they can already do. So just a really way that we can love and take care of that person without kind of disempowering them, which is when you think about being a victim, it is having a genuine belief of, I can't do this, I don't have a power, I don't have a choice, I can't change this. And although it can be really irritating when we're around those kind of people, it's just developing that compassion and understanding that it can be really tough. So send them some love and light and protect yourself around that. And lots of empowering motivational language really helps too.
Although she might find it a bit patronising when it happens. Now, Ursula should be coming on. So I just clicked yes to Ursula, and she's coming down in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, I can see. So Ursula, hopefully you can hear us, and we'll hope that you can get through. So your microphone looks like it's muted at the moment. I don't know if there's anything I can do. Oh, there you are. I can hear a voice. Hi, Ursula.
Hi.
Hey, good. So it looks like your video's coming on. I'm not 100% sure, but at least we can hear you.
All right. Yeah, I don't know what to do about putting the video in, but I'll just speak for now.
Yeah, don't mind. That's cool.
Well, I wanted to ask about. I'm just starting up a little business, and I'm quite excited about it. I feel very motivated to do a business. I really feel like it's the right thing for me. But my question is. I understand that it would be brilliant to do something that I feel really, really passionate about for my business. But the things that the things that I feel most passionate about, I can't really figure out how to turn them into a business at the moment. Things like healthy cooking, that I really love, healthy food. I don't have any training, and actually I'm not really that great. I don't think I'm good enough to sell my food, kind of thing. So I've decided to do business that is connected to what I've done for years for work, which is teaching English, and I'm combining English teaching with personal development. So I'm doing workshops for people who feel afraid to speak English. So it's combining things I've done like Gestalt with English teaching. And I'm doing a course at the moment about how to start the business, and I just have this, I keep often having this sort of nagging feeling when people talk about their passion-based business and what they're doing. I don't think I'm doing like my number one passion, but if I waited for years to do my number one passion, I feel like I'd just be putting it off, and I want to do something now. And I just wanted to ask your thoughts about that, about balancing my passion with what I can actually realistically offer people that has value at the moment.
Well, it's interesting that you were sort of, because lots of that stuff there, by the way, I just had to go and get my dog, so apologies, she was about to start barking at that. So I think it's interesting what you were saying there about not being that great at cooking, so that, and the healthy eating side of it, so I can't really kind of cook meals and prepare them. What about educating people about healthy food? Because, there's a lot of misconceived ideas, especially generated by Facebook. It's like, I was drinking hot lemon in the morning for 20 years, and this is what happened to me. I grew old, and it had nothing to do with the lemon. It's like, there's a load of stuff like, turmeric kills cancer. I mean, what do? Snort it? I mean, doing lines of turmeric. So there's a lot of kind of misinformation and information and all of that stuff that's out there. What if you were to actually become the definitive guide? And I think when we're looking at education, and then we're looking at everything that you could possibly want to know, is probably in your by now. You've got a little one as well. So between your little one crying and mine one barking, I think we can do quite well. So I think that elaborate all of this information and put it together in a course, like a beginning and a middle and an end and a breakthrough. So I certainly know that my mum's generation, I really liked apple juice, but she couldn't afford to buy apple juice. She used to buy me apple squash, and she actually thought it was the same kind of thing and that it had the same level of vitamin content in it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and that's my generation who were kind of thinking like that. So there's still, even with all of this information out there, if you were to start collecting it and sort of putting it in a, this is what you need to do if you need more energy. This is what you need to do if you need more brain power, if your brain's going into a brain fog. So if you isolate a problem and look at the food solution, it might take some research, but
Yeah.
distill down the bullshine from what is actually real. That might be one really good way of doing it. And I would match that with also doing what you're doing with the English and teaching English and doing the workshops. But I would possibly create the healthy eating mindset as an online program. So you create a passive income from it. And that could be, also, I always think, figure out the format that you enjoy the most. So I really enjoy audio. I like listening. You know, quite often if I'm watching something on YouTube, I'm not watching it. I just put on the audio, I've got that playing, and I'm off doing something else, making a cup of tea. So I think when you're thinking about creating content, think about the kind of content you really like to receive, and then think about the kind of content that you're really good at. And so it could be that you like talking, like me. It could be that you don't mind writing, like I'm happy to author books. And then create something that will earn you money over and over and over again without you putting any work into it. And then that will free you up to perhaps go and do a third thing, or to perhaps run a retreat in healthy eating. And again, take someone with you who's actually a really great cook, or like work in teams, a bit like me and Ismene are doing today. You don't have to do all of this stuff on your own. There is so much about independent business. It has to be your business and no collaboration. And believe me, you have to collaborate in order to have successful businesses. You have to find people who will partner their stuff with your stuff. So if you've got, you know, I know people in Bristol who will have a nutritionist with a running coach, with a gym thing, with somebody who's a stylist, you know, and they'll actually come together and kind of, you know, when I say share clients, I feel like I'm handing around pick a mix, but you know, they'll work with people, and that might be something that works for you. What do you think about all of that? Is that triggering a meh response, or does that feel quite good?
It feels good. I mean, it feels, I feel nervous about the idea of going into that field, but I like the idea of that I could combine it, because I feel we need some financial. I don't want to take such a big risk as to do something that's very new for me. Sorry, and that I'm not qualified in at all. So I like the idea that I could combine it. I feel more confident doing the English teaching because I know what I'm doing, but it's not so much of a passion. So I like the idea. Actually, I don't have to limit it to one thing. I could use the skills that I'm learning. I'm learning about starting a business, and I could kind of bring in the other stuff that feels a bit more exciting to me and use it. You know, I don't have to limit myself to one thing. So that's really encouraging to think. Actually, nothing's lost. You know, I don't have to shut the door to the other stuff.
And also, when we talk about like the expense of starting up a business, I mean, I've just created a website for myself, you know, and I found Squarespace really easy to use. And it's something like, I mean, it's not even that much money per month to have a website on Squarespace. One, you know, and really, if I can do it, you know, I shouldn't put myself down. I'm actually brilliant. But it's, you know, I think it's absolutely doable. That you might just need a website with a couple of pages and some simple stuff and some audio that you can record on a phone. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, the technology of us doing this webinar now, you know, once you've paid for the software and all the rest of it, you can just keep doing webinars. You can do paid for webinars, so you can actually get people to talk. And I know what you mean about not feeling qualified, but you know, there comes a point when qualifications just don't even cut it, because it's actually how you can deliver information that makes somebody feel, I've got this, I can do this. Because, you know, you can do all sorts of kind of like courses and things that qualify you to be an expert, but if you can't deliver for toffee, if you can't teach, if you can't make people feel comfortable or have trust and faith in you, then it really doesn't matter. And with me, I qualified it, well, I studied loads and loads of different modalities and didn't take a qualification in any of them, for the simple reason that once you're qualified in something, you're kind of caught in the rules of that modality, that you can't make it your own. And you have to keep going back for follow-up courses and, tests or this thing or that thing, or joining this organisation that you have to pay subscription to every year. And I just kind of thought to myself, one brain does not fit all. So I actually want to have something where I can pick and choose all of these different modalities and use them with clients. So I think don't worry too much about the education. Make sure you're educated enough to be able to get insured. It's good. But don't worry too much, because passion and the capacity to bring information together in a simplistic way that communicates something really powerfully is far better than overly complicating too much information that everybody goes that can't even deal with that. True, isn't it?
Totally true. And actually, we can find lots of excuses and reasons not to start. And I guess we can just start anywhere with anyone, and that's quite empowering and exciting.
It's awesome.
That's a very freeing perspective. I think that I have a lot to offer without. I don't need to get hung up on those qualifications, and also that I could do both things. That I can do both things. So.
Don't say anything, but I've never felt fully prepared for anything I've ever done.
You just do it. Yeah.
You just do it, and if it goes tits, apologise.
Yeah, I always think that it's better to do it and fail than not to try, because that kind of nagging feeling, if you've got a real passion for something, that really kind of erodes you over time. Better to just try, and then and then you can feel empowered about that. And then you gain confidence as you go on. It is a total myth that we've all got it sorted. None of us have got it sorted. We just go out and do it, and then we feel accomplished.
It's true. Thank you so much, Ursula. Brilliant. I don't know how to answer you, but I think you can go, and then you'll probably log back out and then come back into the room. So we'll catch you on the other side.
Okay, thank you so much.
Very well. Thank you. Cool.
Okay, so we're going to go to another email now. So this is about relationships. So this is all the way from Sweden. Asa, I hope I'm saying your name right. I'm used to people getting my name wrong all the time, so it's I hope I'm getting it right for you. Okay, so this is a longer one, but I guess it's something that we've probably all dealt with at different points. Being in relationships, they can be tricky, and that difference between the head and heart. So that's what this email is about. So how can you tell when it's that time to leave a relationship? So I keep going between my head and my heart. On one hand, I think it's time to break up. Looking at relationship with logic, I can see it doesn't fulfill my needs. I've been waiting for my man to finish his projects, to return to me, to spend time with me, to have sex with me, to do things with me. On the other hand, I love him and keep wondering if we should try harder. If I start behaving in another way, if I start to express my needs more strongly. So again, a lot of things that people feel, head and heart. So just summing that up, I'm afraid because I'm afraid to be alone, even though I'm very lonely now. But also I'm afraid of staying because I can't hurt him and to meet the disapproval from my parents and his parents. So I hope to get some good advice on what my next step should be.
It's so hard, isn't it? It's so hard, because it's, do you walk, it's this sort of clash song, should I stay or should I go now? It's a tough one, because I don't think you ever really get your needs met by another human being. So I'll just put that right back out there. I don't think you ever get your needs met by a human being. So I think sometimes there's a call to kind of like look at what you're not giving yourself that you're hoping somebody else can give you. But in this regard, I also hear on top of that, it's really no good to just like not be considered in somebody else's life, and that you're constantly waiting means that you're putting your own life on hold because you're waiting to be seen and nurtured and spend time with. And you want a partner, a life partner, your play buddies, roll on the floor, chew each other's ears like puppies. You want to have somebody that you actually have that really lovely engagement with. And the downside of that is when you don't have that kind of engagement, you do feel really lonely. And I've been in relationships where I felt more lonely than I've ever felt being single. And I think that when we aren't coming from a place of saying, hey, listen, I am worth more than this, we're not the princess at the top of the tower anymore. So it doesn't feel bothered to bother with the dwarfs or slay the dragon or deal with climbing up your hair, because you're in and you're there. And it just becomes ordinary and quite normal. And the passionate desire is no longer there, because interestingly, desire is more strong when you're apart from each other and when you reconnect. So we're used to sometimes measuring our love by desire instead of measuring our love by dum da dum da dum da dum da dum, like the normal day. You know, so when we're apart from someone, then we kind of like come back together. And I wonder if he's waiting to have some kind of like surge of emotions. And so sometimes when that kind of apart and then we come back together, there isn't a surge of emotion. So it just starts to feel very ordinary if it's short periods of time. If it's longer periods of time, then there's the surge of emotions. If it was me, I think probably my thought would be, there's no point nagging. There's no point talking quietly about this. There's no point saying, listen, you know, I think we have to go very deeply into the feminine and say, I'm really scared. Because that's what I hear in this email, is I'm really scared. Because if truth be told, I'm not so scared about you falling out of love with me or not loving me, not giving me attention. I'm not really that scared about that. That's become my life. What I'm really scared of is that I'm falling out of love with you, that I'm losing respect for you, that I'm feeling that you're not my man, that you're not the person that I can look up to, that you're not the person that I can really be in love with, because you're being a bit damn lame. And what I'm scared of the most is that I will walk away from you. And when I do, you will become the man I wanted, because you will see me as I leave that door. You will see me and you will realize what I was when I've gone, because that's always what happens. And so by suddenly kind of like feeling, I know who you are, now you're leaving me, that he may live in regret for the rest of his life, because once you really have shut your heart to him, and you know you're quite close, once you shut your heart to him, when you shut your heart, it doesn't open again. And you know that, because that's how you protect yourself. You just go poof. And I mean, it doesn't open again to anybody, of course it does, but it doesn't open to that person again. So this question is literally, if I shut it now, if I turn around and say, I'm falling out of love with you because you're not the man I can look up to, respect and admire, and I need a man by my side who holds that space. And if that isn't you, if that can't be you, then you have to let me go and find someone else who it can be with. Because all that's going to happen is you are going to cost me my sense of self-worth. And your self-worth, it's just too expensive to lose. Because I tell you something, it will take you less time to find a new man than it will to find your self-worth. And I will say that again to any other woman who is putting up with somebody who isn't treating them completely brilliantly or doesn't value them. I think that lack of value, it kills your soul. So let me say this again. It will take you longer to find lost self-esteem than it will another man. And in fact, I will also say that to men. It will take you longer to find your lost self-esteem than it will to find another woman. Because believe me, we are both equally shit. So I would say that rather than having I need you to do this, I need you to do that, I need you to do the other, he will go into the masculine, he won't do it. He will do what I call, oh darling, I did dinner, could you do the washing up? And then he'll count to 10 very slowly, and sometimes it can take a couple of days. And then of course, you know, if you remind him at 5, he goes back to counting from 1, because it needs to kind of be coming from him. So, and it can only be coming from him until a certain amount of time has gone by. So, you know, you can tell him, but it's just going to fall on dead ears, and he's not going to make any difference. The feminine, because that's masculine as well, you're arm wrestling. The feminine goes into vulnerability. I'm scared. I don't want to feel like this, but I do. And you're the only person who can make it right. And then suddenly we're creating that fairy tale of the tower and the, you know, oh, look, here's a dwarf. And so we're suddenly in a better position to be able to say, and you know, when we go into the feminine, something really interesting happens to guys. They go, oh, well, I'm sorry you feel like that, I'll fix it. When you go into the masculine, then they'll fight you for it. But when you go into the feminine, it inspires them to fix it. So my one piece of advice is try to go into the feminine, try and talk about your fears, be emotional about it, really have that conversation. It sounds like it's going to be a breakup conversation, but you don't have to let it get that far. Ask him for his help, then give him time, give him some time. And I would say have a deadline on it. I would say about 3 months. And if you haven't seen any improvements, I think you know. And it's that awful American saying, he's just not that into you. But you have to test that in order to know whether or not he's not that into you. And if he's not that into you, leave with dignity, because you cannot afford to lose dignity. It's so important. I've wobbled on a bit. What do you think?
I think it's a really tough place to be when we're thinking about losing a relationship, because it's losing maybe part of ourselves, or maybe we feel guilty or feel worried about what other people would think. But I think it's something that's really freeing in a relationship is to remember, even though when we're in a couple it feels like we're two people, but actually just to really remember, and I've got this lovely H, is that we're two separate people, and that, you know, the love and the connection, and then this way if people leave, you've still got two whole people. Whereas if you're kind of leaving it like this and one person moves, everyone falls over. So it's just going back to actually your responsibility, as all of ours is in any relationship that we have, just to do our 50% really, really well. And then let the other 50% be their responsibility. So just, I guess that we honor that by going inward and just saying, what is it that you need to say? What's important to you? How can you do your 50% really well? And then leave it up to the other person.
I think so. Now, I've just invited somebody to speak. So that's Yasmene. So hopefully Yasmene is on her way into the room. So we'll look at the bottom of the thing. But we've got a couple of messages in from Deb. So the bottom one is the last one, and then the top one is the, you
okay, so Deb, so having a bit of a, oh no, we got that. Okay, so you did manage to reconnect.
You did it,
yay. We got you back.
Yay.
Okay, so love this philosophy about not necessarily being trained. I'm a member of an association and fallen into having to keep up with the latest must-dos, having a rethink. Thank you for your inspiration.
Oh, that's really lovely. Thanks, Deb. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone who's on the call as well. So hopefully Leslie isn't having too many problems. No, Yasmene isn't having too many problems. Shall we jump to that other email whilst we're waiting? Oh, hang on. I can see a little face at the bottom right. Hi, Yasmene. It's doing something. I feel like we ought to kind of do some on-hold music. Yasmine's coming through, ladies and gentlemen. Please hold the line. Yasmine's coming through, ladies and gentlemen. Please hold the line. Is Yasmene there? Hey, Yasmene.
Hello.
Yay! Sorry, I must have deafened everybody.
I'm so excited.
No, we're so pathetic. Thank you ever so much, Yasmene. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Very good. You're in a very dark room. You look. In fact, this is a little bit Blair Witch. It's worrying.
No, I think it's just my webcam can't pick up the light.
A little bit.
We can see you a little bit. That's fine. What can we do for you?
Well, I'm in a bit of a crossroads at the moment. Career-wise, I've kind of thought that I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I'm at university following my passions, which is music. But now I'm not too sure if this is the right sort of road for me. And I know that I want to creatively be able to help people. But I just don't know now what to do.
So, I read a wonderful book by Anne Rice called Tale of the Body Thief. And in it, what was a vampire, but he's had his body stolen, so he's just a normal human.
It's just a normal kind of story, really.
Yeah, bear with me. He met this nurse because he was having his first cold in a few thousand years. He met this. Can you imagine having man flu when you were a vampire? Anyway, moving on. Big problems. And he met whole webinar. He met this nurse, and this nurse used to be a really amazing classical pianist. And he said, well, what made you give up the piano and become a nurse? And she said, because I made a pact with God when my mother got ill, that if my mother became well, that I would devote my life to the service of God. And he said, I still don't understand why you became a nurse. And she said, well, to serve God. And he said, well, don't you think that if it was God that gave you a natural gift of being able to play piano to concert pianist level, that is the service of God? And I do believe that you can kind of, I'm not religious, so that God thing, I'm just quoting a book, and she's a bit religious, and us. So I think that sometimes when we talk about healing and doing things like that, I think probably sound and music especially, we think about curing illnesses and curing mental health, but what about prevention? And I think that music is the most unbelievable prevention of everything that can possibly go wrong with a human being. It changes your cognitive mindset completely. so quickly. And at the same time, you play me a minor chord, even if it's in an upbeat Coldplay song, I'll still feel emotional, and I will still process thoughts I haven't had in my head for years. And I think that you are already being attracted to the healing modalities. And I certainly was when I worked in theatre. I was attracted to theatre because I wanted to give an auditorium of people that feeling of transformation that happens when you've seen something really powerful on stage. And I couldn't feel it backstage because I did my shadow career. I worked backstage, I did lighting and stuff, and I wasn't on stage. And so I couldn't feel it enough, and that's why I left theatre, and now I'm doing what I'm doing today. And there's no reason why you can't combine something similar to what I'm doing if you want to be kind of like more in there and hands-on with music. And I certainly want to do more live events. I've done a few of them already, where I'm combining, I don't know, inspirational teachers with music and circus performers. Oh my God, it's just, I mean, you know, I tried it once at the Tabernacle. It wasn't quite the success I wanted it to be. But, you know, we're coming into a time when we understand that healing isn't just about like lay down and I'll cover you in bandages. You know, we're looking at how we can create cognitive transformation in a number of ways. And maybe you're looking for a bolt-on to the music rather than it being something that's separate. How does that feel to you?
Yeah, that feels like something, because I want to be able to kind of feed every part of me. And I think that I've kind of got it in my head, this whole thing that society feeds us, as in pick one thing, you have to do this is what everyone does, you know, for the rest of however long.
And do you know, it's an absolute crock. I mean, it really is. I can't think of a more boring life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to keep you in hens, you know. I call myself an Ismene free-range hens. You know, we're not in kind of office coops.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, for an interdisciplinary mind, which you clearly have, it's really great to have lots and lots of things that light us up, that make us feel passionate. So I do so many different things, you know, and it's brilliant, because I would honestly, I'd get really bored, so I don't want to get really bored. So I think that, you know, even if I had like one career that was like a 9-to-5 job, because I really enjoyed the 9-to-5 job, I'd still find my evenings and my weekends doing other stuff. So I think that when you're at the point of university, you get to a point where it becomes ordinary, because you've been studying for so long. You start to become like fed up with it, but actually what you're doing is you kind of get a bit disillusioned with being stuck in the same learning modality for a long length of time. And we think we don't like the subject, but what it is if you're in the outside world, a normal life, you would have moved on into something else by now. I think I've probably stuck in one job for the maximum of 2 years. You know, and that was Blood Brothers, and that was a musical that I was working on. And then we worked on that for about 2 years, and that's because I was waiting for something else that I knew was coming, which was the show on LBC. And in the end, I ended up quitting LBC, and I ended up quitting Blood Brothers before the show on LBC.
You mentioned something that's interesting about, obviously, how insecure, I suppose, those types of work are. And I think maybe this stems from a fear of needing security and...
oh mate, security's an illusion. It's just such an illusion. You know, the best security that you can have is to have ideas in your head, because when you've got ideas, like no matter what's happening to your bank balance, you can come up with an idea to fix it. And, you know, I've spent most of my life working freelance, and I mean, like, to the point where some months, you know, you might get a text message from your bank saying you'll blow your lower limit, you know, and then other months you're like going, woohoo, I'm going on a holiday. Oh no, shit, save for the lean months. Oh, never mind, holiday, you know. So it's kind of, you know, but the security that used to be, you know, take a job for life. No, and to be honest, I'd rather be self-employed than have somebody else actually be in charge of my future, because suddenly my face doesn't fit, or the fact that, I mean, you know, I got fired once from a job because a guy started fancying me that my boss fancied, and I got fired. I mean, hell, you know, what the heck is that all about? You know, it just, these things, you know, I think that the best security that you can have is faith in yourself and ideas that you'll figure it out. No matter what happens, you will figure it out. And if you can have a backup of a job, just make sure that you've also got the backup of ideas in case that job doesn't figure out or doesn't work. So yeah, security in that way, security is self-belief. Security is not anything external. Nothing external is secure. Everything about security is one belief, which is, I don't have the confidence for this, but I have the faith. I have faith that no matter what happens, I will figure it out, because that's what I do. So once you've had quite a few different shit things happen to you, just putting the dog down, not in a bad way, not like at the vet, and just on the floor, and before you phone in, that would be awful. So you know, so that when you've had a few different bad things happen to you, you actually get to a point where you're really empowered by those things, where you go, well, look, I didn't die last time. So then you start to have evidence for the fact that you can be secure. But until you've got that evidence, you just have to base it on blind, desperate faith. Faith, I will figure it out. And do you know what? You always do. You know, I really do believe that the universe never gives you more than you can handle in anything.
Well, I'm trying to find comfort in the not knowing, and you know, there's a whole infinite world of possibilities out there. But
that's part of the excitement, and actually realizing that life fulfillment and going after your dreams, what anyone else tells you, it is scary, and it does come with up and downs, and it does come with unknowns, but that's also kind of part of the excitement. And I guess if your intention, you're really lucky that you know what you feel passionate about. A lot of people, I ask them, what are you passionate about? What lights you up? What do you want to do? I don't know. So you're already one stage further, so just run with it. You know, just trust that you've already got to that stage where if you already know what you love and that you feel passionate about and you want to share with the world, that is number one. So you've already got there, and that's exciting. Follow it.
Last night I did a stage show at the King's Head Theatre, which I go out and do what I'm doing now, which is kind of like insights on people, and I mix it with improv comedy. So it's a stand-up show mixed with personal transformation and self-help. I don't like to do one thing. I like to do everything, you know, so even my stand-up shows are like that. But of course, I can't prepare any of that. I can't prepare a script. I can't prepare anything. I'm sitting backstage going, what on earth was I thinking? This is insane. Get on stage and I'm like, oh, I love these people. I love these people. I'm having a really great time. I can't believe I'm getting paid for this. And then kind of like, you know, afterwards we're like, me. And yeah, I've done that show and walked away going, never again. You know, it's just, and you know, when you don't know, you have flow. Mm. So when you don't know, when you're kind of like living life at altitude because you're just going with the flow and you're in faith and you're excited and it's like, well, let's see what happens. Do you know, life is invigorating and it's exciting and it's brilliant, but when you're trying to be safe and controlling and clever and smart and playing it safe, it goes like, you know, like some kind of like robotic weirdy shit. But when you're actually in flow with things, you just stop taking yourself too seriously. We were talking about this before. You take yourself too seriously. You just stop taking yourself too seriously, and then you find that life is just so much bloody fun. But when you think that you can control your outcomes, life becomes miserable because you spend a lot of time considering how to control things.
I'm worrying about it.
And then you like doing that body bottom thing. Mm. I hope that helps. Does that help?
Yeah, it really has. Thank you.
Good. And I go and find some lights. I'm sure it's just your laptop. You can tell you're in England, bloody dark. Right, I'll catch you again. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, where are we? Good. We are where we were before. Hey, listen, light on the questions, folks. What's going on? I don't mind. Believe me and I can talk. But we've got another email, haven't we?
Okay, we have, yes. All right, this is from Mary. Thanks, Mary. So Mary feels like she's constantly being judged by women, and lately has been verbally attacked by a family member, which she's still recovering from. So she says, standing on my own 2 feet, I don't have many problems, but it is the role of the effect of other people's problems that is bringing me down. I've walked away from people as a result of people's issues, and it is making me go inward and is also taking my confidence. I wonder, could you have any insight into this and maybe help me deal with this going forward? Is there some way I can avoid this? I need to leave negative females out of my life and move on. Is there something in me that attracts these kind of females to me? Thank you.
Oh, that's a good question, isn't it? That's a really good question. Have you been bullied by women?
Not bullied, but I guess sometimes women can be quite threatened by me.
Yeah.
But I think it's also if we've got the mentality, so I'm kind of quite big in this, because I know when I'm being critical of myself, I'm looking in my outer world for it. So if I'm looking, oh my God, I haven't got that right, or I don't like this about me, or I'm being too much, there's a classic, the being and the too much club, was in that for years and years and years. I'm too much. I'd be really paranoid looking for it. And the thing is that when we've got that going on in the background, what we actually start to do is act that out. So if I felt that I was being too much, normally I either would be totally over the top because I was trying to please people, or I'd be trying to be in the background and being really awkward and trying to fix up in a box that didn't fit. So I looked desperate to people. So I think that's the bit where we kind of get trapped, because if we have these views, so for example, I'm being constantly judged by women, so that's quite a blank statement about every woman out there. So if you've got that in your unconscious mind, what is actually happening is every interaction with your woman, it's that like, oh God, when's the next person going to attack me? So we start to behave in that kind of way. Does that make sense? Have you ever had that?
Oh, it does make sense. It's really interesting because I've always had the part of the too much club. I'm too loud, I'm too vivacious, I'm too this, I'm too that, whatever it is. It's always too something. And I used to get bullied by women a lot. Like, I mean, you know, when I was saying about getting fired from a job, that was a bullying situation from a woman that I was working with. And I used to have it a lot. Like, I remember a woman saying to me, have you been swimming? Now, I've been at work 2 hours. I've been there 2 hours. Have you been swimming? Like, I've been here 2 hours. You know I haven't been swimming. So I'm like, no. And she went, oh, it's just your hair. Must be greasy. Seriously. Like, oh my God. Like, and this is when I was in my 20s. This isn't kind of like, you know, some sort of like episode of, I was not at Grange Hill.
I love her noises. Great noises.
And literally it was like one after the other, and it was like the same woman but with a different face, and it was exactly the same kind of like a front, and it was always, and I tried everything. I was like wearing a clown nose, doing an SAS maneuver across the floor, trying to make myself as small as I possibly could. I was funny. I just tried absolutely everything, but I was always trying to make myself smaller or insignificant or to disappear. And then one day I walked into work, and this was like the last of these women, you know, I mean, it might as well have been the same woman. And something just came over me. And I thought, you know what? I really don't give a rat's what about this woman or what this woman thinks of me. In fact, if she was to ask me to clean the to clean the bin out with my tongue, I'd say yes. I just suddenly thought, I really don't care. And she looked at me and she went, are you all right? And I went, yeah. But there was just something had happened. And she never bullied me again. And I think when I kind of, it was something about the resistance I was putting up. And it was like I was going, every time I walked into the room and there was somebody who was going to say something. And I mean, and I've had women, like, you know, in like being at work, I was working crew in a theatre. And she was just one above me, you know. It's kind of like we both had similar experience work-wise, but she was like, I was an assistant stage manager and she was the deputy stage manager. And she'd said, oh, don't leave bags of rubbish downstairs in the crew area, in this area that I was using as a workshop. And to be honest, I never did. So it was like, why are you telling me to do something I don't do anyway? So I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, I won't do that. Because there's no point going, I never do, but I don't, because there's just no point. So I went, yeah, sure. And then about 2 hours later, she went down into the crew room, picked up a big bag of rubbish and went, what's this? And yelled at me. She's standing at the top of the stairs screaming at me. It was the crew's rubbish. It wasn't my rubbish. It wasn't my bag. And she just screamed and just lost it. And I think when I looked at her and I realised here is one extremely insecure woman who is absolutely threatened. And I suddenly realised that what I'd stepped into when I let go on that final time that it happened was I stepped into being authentic for the first time in my life. And I stopped putting on some kind of act. I'm not this or I'm too much of that or whatever. I just kind of went, it was like an out-breath. I just like went, me. It just stopped. And by doing that, I hadn't realised that what I was putting up was like a mirror, that when they looked at me, they kind of saw a reflection of themselves, what they weren't doing, who they weren't, if they weren't a nice person, if they weren't popular with everybody else, if they weren't. And so it wasn't me they hated, it was the reflection of themselves and the things they weren't that they saw in me. And so when I stopped kind of, and I'm not saying I'm absolutely brilliant or anything like that, but it was their own lack of value that made them try and decrease my value, because the thing I was hiding was a very together, powerful, incredible young woman I couldn't find her. I didn't know she was there, but they did. They knew she was there. And they wanted to squash her before she became a threat to anyone else in the room. And when I became that person, then they all wanted to be my friend, and they all wanted to hang out with me, and they wanted my help, and they wanted to, because I'd stopped trying to repress that. And when I was that, well, they realised it wasn't threatening, it was just friendly, like a Labrador. You know, some people are scared of Labradors. And some of them like being licked all over the face. And I'm a little bit like a Labrador, you know. So I think that if you can just find a way, I mean, when you're being bullied, it's really hard. I'm like kind of asking you to do something that's quite difficult here. Because if you can find a way to drop the act and just step into that power that you're denying, if you actually, and I mean power, you know, because we always think repressive power, because that's what you don't like in all of these other women. It's a repressive power. And the reason why you don't like it is because you're not acknowledging it in yourself. And I'm not saying you're a bully, but I'm saying when you acknowledge your own power, you step into your power, and then nobody tries to repress your power because you're just in it and you're kind of like too big to be squished. So, and I know that this is difficult sometimes to get your head around, because the first thing we go into is fakery, which is, right, I'm going to be an empowered woman, and we suddenly start like acting like Angelina Jolie. You know, kind of like, hello everyone, I'm Angelina Jolie, talking to the UN. Oh, she doesn't talk like that, does she? She'd be talking with an American accent. So we suddenly want to go into this kind of like power dynamic of the kind of typical archetype of a powerful woman. But actually, it's just finding our own power. And usually that's in the place of vulnerability, which is in the place of, do you know, I resign. I resign from giving a monkey's rat's face bag. I resign. That's a better word than using the word that's in my head. I no longer give a rat's face bag. So if we can let go of that, then suddenly we can actually just step into our authentic place. And believe me, I haven't been bullied by women since. I've been in an interesting female dominated empowered environment recently. I'm not going to talk about where. And there was a bullying culture when I first started, and I started to have the same thing happen again. I started to panic because I thought maybe I haven't got to the bottom of this. With one woman, I just let it ride out and just kind of watched it happening because I knew she was leaving, so I didn't worry too much about it. But then I looked at who the ringleaders were, and I looked at who probably the one that everyone was the most scared of, and I challenged her. So I found a reason, you know, I'd upset her about something. I went to apologise. She started to rip a strip off me. I paused and waited so that she could come and have a conversation with me in a different space, because she was stressed at that moment. I could understand that, so there's no point having a loggerhead then. Then she came out and did the whole, what was it you were trying to say? And I literally just went, actually, I was apologising, but I really don't appreciate your tone. I said, and even if you are stressed, there is a decorum and a dignity by which you treat people. So I'm just telling you now very clearly that this is not okay with me. The way you are talking to me is not okay. It doesn't happen here. And she just went, oh, because nobody had done that. Nobody had done that. And all the other women in the office who'd been kind of bullied by her kind of went, oh God, waited for her to erupt. And she went, oh, she said, it was fine then. I said, okay, fine. So how's the rest of your day been? And I instantly dropped it and gave her an out. Because it's a little bit like when guys chat at women and they come out with something like, he's sexy. It's like, oh my God, really? Awkward now. But if you was to go, hey sexy, love those shoes, you'd go, oh thanks, la la. It breaks it. There's got to be a point where something breaks. Speak your truth, stand up for yourself, but then break it the minute that you do. So that, because what happens is people then start going, I've got to find my way out of this. And they have two choices. They come out of it through hostility, or they go out of it and into shame. And shame will come back at you, because what they'll do is, that person shamed me, I'm going to become vengeful. So if you can actually go into kind of like a changing it really quickly, this is not okay with me, just stating a fact now. Oh, by the way, I've got some Smarties if anyone would like one. Boom, job done. If you haven't got any Smarties, it could be embarrassing. Carry Smarties. Other chocolate groups are available.
And I think it's really to remember, actually, that's really well said, because we panic, we think, oh my God, we can't change other people's behaviour. Well, quite often we can't, because we're not in control of other people. The bit that you're in control of is you, and how you view yourself, how you're treating yourself, is really giving information to other people about, this is what they think about themselves, and therefore this is how I can treat them. So actually we can take the power back and say, okay, so if this is a repeated thing, I mean, somebody's going to have a bad day and say something horrible to you, let them get on with it. But if you're noticing that something's a pattern, who's the common denominator?
It is, isn't it? I know, and that's what I realised about myself as well. Right, we've had a couple of different questions come in. We are running out of time, so let's have a quick look and see what's come in. So,
got a lovely comment from Sylvie. I just life loves Becky. Nice.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay, so shall I read the comment if we got time for Anna?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay, so Anna, my parents are in the middle of a tricky separation and communications is no longer effective. Actually, it's horrible. Me and my 2 sisters have taken on and they have given us permission to help create a financial resolution, a final try before they fight it out in court. My issues are that I cause more problems when I try to resolve them. Any tips on stepping back but being effective and just being able to show love and support? It's my tummy that starts churning with nerves and my brain on overdrive, questioning.
At some point we always become our parent's parent, and it sounds like you've become your parent's parent, and it sounds like you're being given parental responsibilities when you don't want them, you know, and you know, but apart from giving birth, I'm not that keen on them either. So I think the difficulty is to kind of like go, okay, well, what kind of parent do you want to be? Do you want to be a parent that says, hey, listen, guys, you've got this. I trust you to get this right. But you know what? You're going to have to grow up a little bit, and you're going to have to start using, you know, you're going to have to start thinking about this clearly. Because when we go into interfere in this divorce and fighting and splits and all of the rest of it, we start to gather tribes. So the children start to become, you're on my side. I know you can't have this conversation with your daughter, but you're on my side, aren't you? Ah! You know, sorry, thinking that. So you know, we start to kind of get into this thing, and then the wrongness and the build of wrongness, and then all of the things that you never said because you wanted to make the relationship work. So you buttoned it for 20 years. And then you don't have to make the relationship work anymore. So that storehouse of anger and pain and resentment, and it's like a vomiting volcano of personal bile. It's really nasty, and it gets everywhere. And believe me, you can never get it out of the carpet. So I think that all you can really do is, when it gets to that point with them, is to step back and say, listen, you know, you're going to have to be grown up about this, because you've got them throwing toys around in the pram like tantruming teenagers, you know, or tantruming 2-year-olds as well. So I think you've got to work out what kind of parent you want to be. Do you want to be a disciplining parent? Do you want to be a parent that stands back and says, okay, fall over and I'll tell you there's nothing to cry about, get up, you know, and oh, your knee is bleeding. You know, are you going to be the kind of like hands in there parent, kind of controlling the situations? Like, what kind of parent do you want to be? So if you think about parenting your parents, which is kind of interesting, you'll understand how you're going to step back, because the minute you think about parenting your parents, you're already stepping back from being a daughter and feeling put upon and used, and it's all wrong and the dynamics are wrong, and why is it like this? Because you're changing the dynamics into the dynamics that they're forcing upon you, but you get to choose how you react as a parent.
Yeah, well said. And also, just as a quick add-on to Becky, that also, if you don't want to be the parent, it's also not your responsibility, and it's totally okay to say no. The problem is I know you won't. That's true. So you could. I think we're okay. I think that's it. Thank you ever so much for joining us. It was wonderful. We'll be doing the same thing again next month. And thank you for saying thank you. Yes, we'll be doing the same thing again next month. Kat will probably be back joining us again next month. So we had a little bit of a special with Ismene. I've got an article coming out in Kindred Spirit called Walsh's Wisdom. So if you would like to actually take part by writing in a letter and doing that old kind of style problem page agony art, well, I'm going to be doing that, and it's going to be going in Kindred Spirit. So if you want to have a little look at that, then you totally can. That's going to be fun. I think it comes out end of April, so I think it's like May's issue or something along those lines. Yeah, so lots of exciting things happening. I'm about to launch a new website, so stay on the mailing list to find out about new things. I'm doing a whole new rejig of my life and my work, so loads of exciting things are going to be coming out, so I'll be telling you all about that in the coming weeks. So my thanks to Ismene, and my thanks to everyone who's joined us, and hope to catch you again soon. Bye-bye.